No one warns you that love doesn't end in explosions. It ends in silence, in separate bedrooms, in polite conversations about groceries, while your wife looks through you like you're furniture. The wedding promises you forever, but no one mentions what forever actually feels like when you're 45 and realize you're married to a stranger who shares your last name. I'm a relationship psychologist, and I've spent 15 years listening to men sit across from me, staring at their hands, asking the same question. When did it all change? The answer is uncomfortable. It changed slowly. So slowly you didn't notice until you woke up one morning and felt nothing. These are the 10 realities most men only discover after the wedding. And trust me, once you see them, you can't unsee them. If you value truth over comfortable lies, hit that like and hype buttons immediately. Subscribe to this channel and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I want to know where my strongest, most aware men are tuning in tonight. This isn't about bitterness, it's about awareness. Marriage isn't the fairy tale you were sold during the ceremony. It's a contract between emotions, habits, and survival instincts. What I'm about to share won't make you feel better, but it will make you understand why your marriage feels the way it does. And understanding is the first step to anything real. Reality 1. Love fades into management. Here's the first truth. Love fades into management. That electric feeling when you first met her, when every text made your heart jump, when you couldn't wait to see her, that feeling has an expiration date. Your brain is designed for novelty. In the beginning, dopamine floods your system every time she walks into a room. But after years together, your brain adapts. The dopamine stops. What replaces it is oxytocin, the bonding hormone that keeps you stable but bored. Suddenly, marriage isn't about desire anymore. It's about project management. Who's picking up the kids? Whose turn it is to take out the trash? Whether you paid the electric bill. She stops wearing the dresses that made your breath catch. You stop noticing when she gets her hair done. The psychology here is brutal but simple. Your brain evolved to seek new partners for genetic diversity, not to maintain passion with the same person for 50 years. Society tells you marriage should feel like the honeymoon forever, but biology laughs at that idea. You become roommates with shared responsibilities. The conversations shift from dreams to logistics. When was the last time you actually looked at her, really looked, the way you did on your third date? You can't remember. And here's the part that stings. She feels it too. She sees you've stopped trying. She's stopped trying too. Both of you are just managing now. But the next reality hurts even more. It's the one no one dares to say out loud. Reality 2. Respect erodes. Before love, does most men think love is what keeps a marriage alive? They're wrong. It's respect. You can love someone and still watch the marriage collapse because respect disappeared first. Respect is fragile. It dies in tiny moments. When she interrupts you mid-sentence, when she rolls her eyes at your opinion, when her tone shifts from partner to parent, explaining things to you like you're slow. These micro-disrespects accumulate like dust. You don't notice each particle, but one day you can't breathe. The psychology is clear. Attraction requires admiration. When a woman stops respecting a man, her body stops responding to him. Not because she's cruel, but because biology doesn't negotiate. And men, when you feel disrespected, you withdraw. You stop sharing your thoughts. You stop asking for her input. You build walls brick by brick until you're living in separate fortresses under the same roof. I see this in my office constantly. A wife who dismisses her husband's career struggles with a sigh. A husband who stops defending his wife to his mother. Small betrayals that say, "You don't matter enough for my effort." And once respect is gone, everything else follows. Intimacy feels like a chore. Conversations feel like interrogations. You start wondering if she ever really saw you, or if she just saw what she wanted you to be. And what replaces respect isn't anger. Anger would be easier. What replaces it is something colder. Reality 3. Indifference feels peaceful until it doesn't. Long marriages don't end in screaming matches. They end in silence. Comfortable, polite, soul-crushing silence. You stop fighting because fighting requires caring. Instead, you become roommates who split bills and occasionally share meals. The shift is so gradual, you miss it. One day you realize you haven't had a real conversation in months. You talk about the weather, about what's for dinner, about whose family you're visiting next weekend. But you don't talk about feelings. You don't talk about the distance. You don't talk about the fact that you're lonely, even though someone sleeps next to you every night. Psychologically, this is oxytocin tolerance. Your body gets used to her presence the way it gets used to caffeine. The bonding hormone stops creating that warm feeling. She becomes background noise. And here's the trick your mind plays. Indifference feels like peace. After years of tension or small conflicts, the numbness feels like relief. You tell yourself this is maturity. This is what long-term partnership looks like. But it's not peaceful. It's an emotional shutdown. Your brain is protecting you from the pain of acknowledging that the connection is gone. You scroll through your phone while she watches television. She doesn't ask about your day. You don't ask about hers. Both of you have accepted this as normal. But indifference is dangerous because it opens the door to the next reality. Invisible resentment. But here's what most men never see until it's too late. Resentment doesn't announce itself. It grows in the gaps between words, in forgotten gestures, in the things neither of you say. Reality 4. Resentment grows. In small, quiet moments, resentment is never about one big betrayal. It's built from 1,000 paper cuts, from the time she promised to handle something and didn't, from the years you worked extra hours while she complained you weren't present enough, from every moment you felt unseen, unappreciated, taken for granted. The human brain keeps score automatically. You don't even realize you're doing it. Psychologists call it the equity theory of relationships. We track what we give versus what we receive. When the balance feels unfair for too long, resentment calcifies in your chest like scar tissue. You see it in the small behaviors. The way she sighs when you ask for help. The sarcastic comments disguised as jokes. The forgotten anniversaries. The lack of gratitude when you fix something or handle a problem she created. Men especially struggle with resentment because you're taught not to express emotional needs. So you bury it. You tell yourself to man up, to not be petty. But buried resentment doesn't disappear. It ferments. It poisons every interaction. You start interpreting her neutral actions as attacks. She asks what you want for dinner, and you hear criticism. She suggests a weekend plan, and you hear control. The resentment creates a filter that turns everything bitter. And here's the worst part. She has her own list, her own tally of disappointments and unmet needs. Both of you are silently keeping score in a game no one can win. And resentment always demands payment in one predictable currency. Reality 5. Affection turns. Transactional touch becomes a tool, a reward for good behavior, or a weapon to punish bad behavior. What used to be spontaneous warmth, her hand on your shoulder when you walked past, a kiss that meant nothing except, "I'm glad you're here." All of it becomes conditional. You notice the pattern. She's affectionate after you do something she wanted. She's cold when you've disappointed her. Physical closeness gets traded like currency in a negotiation you never agreed to. This is attachment insecurity showing itself. When emotional connection weakens, partners start using intimacy as leverage. If you help more around the house, maybe she'll be warmer. If she's more appreciative, maybe you'll be more present. It becomes an exhausting game of conditional exchange. The psychology is tragic. Both people want genuine connection, but neither feels safe enough to give it freely anymore. So you bargain. You withhold. You test each other with small gestures to see if the other person will reciprocate before you risk more. I watch couples do this dance in my office. He says, I'd be more romantic if she showed interest. She says, I'd show interest if he made an effort. Both waiting for the other to go first. Both building walls. The spontaneous touches disappear completely. Every hug has calculation behind it. Every kiss is analyzed for hidden meaning. You start to feel like you're performing affection rather than feeling it, and she feels the same way. What was once natural now requires strategy, but what happens when affection becomes negotiation? The next reality answers that question. Reality. 6. You'll miss the person she pretended to be. Here's something nobody tells you. The woman you married doesn't exist. She never did. In the beginning, she showed you her best self. The version that laughed easily, that was spontaneous, that made you feel like the center of her universe. That wasn't manipulation. It was early-stage idealization. Her brain was flooded with chemicals that made her overlook your flaws and amplify your strengths. And you did the same thing. You showed her your most attentive, most romantic, most ambitious self. But those versions of both of you were temporary performances. After marriage, after years, after life grinds away the polish, what remains is the real person. Complicated, tired, sometimes selfish, sometimes difficult. And this creates a unique kind of grief. You find yourself missing her, even though she's right there. You miss how she used to look at you, how she used to laugh at your jokes, how she used to want to hear about your day. The cognitive dissonance is painful. You're mourning someone who's still alive. The woman you fell for was a carefully curated preview. The woman you're living with is the full, unedited version. And that's not her fault. It's not your fault either. It's just the brutal reality of what happens when infatuation chemicals wear off and real personality emerges. But you can't stop comparing. Every disappointment gets measured against those early memories. And that grief leads to the cruelest twist of all. Reality 7. Marriage tests. Your ego more than your heart. Marriage destroys the version of yourself you thought you were. In the beginning, she admired you. She looked at you like you were capable of anything. Her admiration fed your ego in ways you didn't realize you needed. But years into marriage, admiration disappears. You're no longer impressive. You're expected. She doesn't praise your work ethic anymore because she's used to it. She doesn't compliment your problem solving because she assumes that's just what you do. The validation you once got freely now comes rarely, if at all. And for men especially, this loss of admiration feels like a loss of identity. You start questioning your worth. You look in the mirror and see someone ordinary, someone who takes out the trash and pays bills and gets through the day. The exciting version of you that won her over feels gone. This is why so many men in their 40s suddenly buy motorcycles or start intense workout routines or develop new hobbies that seem random to everyone else. They're trying to feel admired again, to feel like someone worth noticing. The psychology here is about validation dependence. When your self-worth becomes tied to your partner's perception, losing that positive reflection feels like losing yourself. You become defensive, sensitive to criticism, desperate for recognition in ways you never were before. And that's when some men start looking for admiration elsewhere. Not always physical, sometimes just emotional. Someone who listens, someone who looks impressed when you talk, someone who makes you feel like you matter. And here's the reality that breaks more marriages than anyone admits. When emotional starvation lasts long enough, even good men make choices they never imagined. Reality 8. Cheating. Rarely starts with lust. Infidelity doesn't usually begin with attraction to another woman. It begins with feeling invisible to your wife, with years of emotional starvation, with being seen as a provider, a problem solver, a fixture, but not as a man. Then someone else notices you. A coworker laughs at your joke. A woman at the gym asks about your day and actually listens to the answer. And suddenly you feel something you haven't felt in years, seen. The flirting feels like oxygen after years underwater. I'm not justifying it. I'm explaining the psychology. Novelty activates reward pathways in your brain that routine has suppressed. That new person doesn't know your flaws yet, doesn't take you for granted yet. With her, you get to be the interesting, attentive, desired version of yourself that your wife stopped seeing years ago. Most men don't plan to cross lines. It starts with conversations, with emotional intimacy that feels harmless because it's not physical. But emotional affairs are often more dangerous than physical ones because they fill the exact void your marriage created. You start comparing your wife's disinterest versus this woman's attention, your wife's criticism versus this woman's admiration, and the comparison makes your marriage look worse than it maybe is. But even without crossing that line, another form of betrayal happens daily in struggling marriages. A quieter kind, more socially acceptable, but just as destructive. Reality 9. Silence becomes self-protection. You stop telling the truth, not because you're dishonest, but because honesty costs too much. Every time you share something real, something vulnerable, it gets used against you later or dismissed or turned into a problem you now have to solve. So you learn to stay quiet. You build a version of yourself that's safe for public consumption. The real you, the one with doubts and fears and needs, stays hidden. Your marriage becomes public relations management. She asks how you're doing, and you say fine even when you're not. She asks what you're thinking, and you say nothing even when your mind is screaming. You perform the role of husband while your actual self watches from behind a wall you built for protection. This is emotional dishonesty, and it destroys intimacy faster than almost anything else. Because intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires the risk of being truly seen. But when being seen means being judged or criticized, or having your feelings minimized, you stop risking it. The tragedy is that she's probably doing the same thing. Both of you are hiding. Both of you are performing. Both of you are lonely despite being together. You have surface-level conversations about logistics and schedules. You avoid topics that might lead to conflict. You've learned exactly which subjects to skip, which opinions to keep to yourself, which parts of your day not to share. And you tell yourself, this is maturity, this is picking your battles. But it's not. It's a slow emotional disconnection, and when you stop speaking truth, you reach the final stage. Reality 10. Staying becomes easier than leaving. Here's the final reality. Most men stay not because the marriage is good, but because leaving feels impossible. Not emotionally impossible. Logistically impossible. You've built a life together, shared finances, a house, maybe children. Your families are intertwined. Your social circles overlap. Separating would mean destroying a structure that took decades to build. So you stay. Not out of love, out of inertia. The psychology term for this is the sunk cost fallacy. You've invested so much time, so much effort, so much of your life into this marriage that leaving feels like admitting it was all wasted. So you convince yourself it's not that bad. Other couples have it worse. At least you're not fighting constantly. At least there's stability. You lower your expectations year by year until you're not asking for happiness anymore. You're just asking for peace, for routine, for getting through each day without major conflict. The comfort of predictability starts to feel like commitment. You know her patterns. She knows yours. There's a strange safety in that familiarity, even when there's no warmth in it. And starting over, meeting someone new, learning another person's habits and histories, the thought exhausts you, so you stay in a marriage that stopped being a marriage years ago. You stay because it's easier, because you're tired, because the devil you know feels safer than the uncertainty you don't. And maybe that's not wrong. Maybe that's just honest. But it's worth asking yourself one question.